Welcome to News Compass. President Uhuru Kenyatta and ODM leader Raila Odinga yesterday unveiled the Building Bridges Initiative Task Force report at the Bomas of Kenya, which is meant to cure 9 major issues affecting the country. The head of state and the opposition chief Raila Odinga emphasized the need to have an inclusive government in order to bring sanity before, during and after every election. Our political affairs reporter Jeff Khaimba sets up News Compass this edition from the Bomas of Kenya, Nairobi County.
Wednesday at the Bomas of Kenya was a D-Day for the launch of the Building Bridges report. The head of state Uhuru Kenyatta and the ODM leader Raila Odinga, who are the pioneers of the 2018 handshake deal that culminated into BBI, led the Kenyans in unveiling the report to the Kenyans with the key message of having an inclusive government.
Na kwa ukweli wakati tulikutana, tulikunywa chai karibu dakika 45, kuna mtu anaongea, tunakunywa tu chai. Habari ya nyumbani sawa. Habari ya mama hapo tu. Habari ya watoto wanasoma, wanaendelea. Kwa sababu ya hasira ya yale ambayo tulikuwa tumerushania huko mbele. Baada ya saa moja hivi sasa, jameni, ndipo sasa watu kuangaliana hapa, tumejifungia ni sisi wawili.
It was in this meeting that the two political heavyweights revealed the hidden details on how they arrived at the March 2018 handshake deal that caught the nation by surprise.
Let us now be mature, and I appeal especially to the political class. Don't divide these people, they don't deserve it. We are here talking about masilahi yao.
Let me not bring it to have wabunge ambao wanaangalia tu kwa maslahi yao wenyewe yao. Let this be a people's document.
Ni kwa nini baada ya kila miaka mitano tunaenda miaka mitatu ya kazi, miaka ya 2 tunapoteza kwa sababu siasa imechacha? Tunataka tuulize wafanyabiashara wetu wenzetu, ni nini inawazuia?
After the handshake deal, President Uhuru Kenyatta and the ODM leader Raila Odinga formed the Building Bridges Initiative Task Force that for 1 year collected the views on healing the nation, curing divisive politics, and fostering cohesion in the country. Several leaders who thronged at the Bomas of Kenya, including the Deputy President William Ruto, vowed to support the report for the benefit of the common mwananchi.
And I am happy that there are proposals on how to build and enhance the institutions of governance, that we will have a robust, maybe constitutional, opposition that will make sure that government is held to account.
Despite the leaders agreeing to support the recommendation of the report, the elephant in the room is the structure of the government, fronting for a prime minister who must be a member of parliament.
Pale kwa governance bado tutafanya ukarabati. Ni lazima president akiwa president awe na 2 deputies. Na awe na uwezo wa yeye kuchagua vile atakavyochagua prime minister. Pale kwa prime minister tuwe na assistant to prime ministers.
And this report will be constituted into either a bill, whereby we are going to decide whether it is a bill of parliament, whereby parliamentarians will vote for it, or it will be a referendum.
Because that is replacing only dual in parliament by a prime minister appointed by the president because of the party. It will not solve any problem.
I want to ask the pioneers of BBI to have a serious engagement with persons with disabilities in this country and their role in BBI. We cannot just wait and say persons with disabilities will go to BBI to support and to vote when your voice has not been heard by the president, by the head of states. And you know, I think that there was a mishap there in terms of organization.
We may actually end up saying that people in public service should not engage in business, but then they have their proxies. Even those proxies must not be allowed.
The BBI task force chaired by the Garissa Senator Yusuf Haji have now pleaded for the implementation of the report to ensure it does not gather dust in the shelves like other reports prepared in the past. One of the key agenda in the handshake deal between President Uhuru Kenyatta and the ODM leader Raila Odinga was to heal political tension in the country before, during and after every election period. The big question remains whether indeed the BBI report will be a lasting solution to what all this menace in the country. Reporting for Ebru TV, I'm Jeff Khaimba.
The hashtag on Twitter is News Compass. Later we'll sample some of your feedback. I am with the ODM Secretary General Edwin Sifuna and former Kadhiani Member of Parliament Wavinya Ndeti. Karibuni sana. I appreciate your time. Edwin Sifuna, if I may start with you with regards to the unveiling of the report yesterday at the Bomas of Kenya, and to just be straight here, there seems to be a striking continuity here rather than a complete change, because I do want to cite the TJRC report, the Waki report, the Krigler report, and the Ndungu land report. If all they fail to offer clean political break in the country, what's the point of BBI?
First of all, those reports that you've cited were not all political reports. And this is day one after the release of the report. You cannot purport to pass judgment that it has already suffered the same fate. As opposed to those previous reports, this particular report is a beginning of a conversation, that it is not an end of the conversation. There are certain reports, like when you talk about the TJRC. The TJRC, in its recommendation, is one of the reports that gave rise to some of the changes we saw even in the 2010 Constitution, even including the structure of the judiciary, bringing in the land courts. It was not implemented in its full, but there are certain recommendations that were made in those reports that have been implemented. So for this BBI report, the hope is that we will carry on the conversation. We were encouraged yesterday by the President and my party leader, Honorable Raila Odinga, to be able to engage with that report with a view to enriching it after understanding what it is about. Because it is an amalgamation of the views of Kenyans as opposed to the views of experts or politicians this time round. These are the views of Kenyans on how they think that we should go about tackling the 9 issues in the memorandum between the President and Honorable Raila Odinga.
Okay, when you mention the President and the opposition chief, Raila Odinga, yes, it was an exclusive coming together, or more or less a bromance between the head of state and your party leader. But then again, in between, even as was yesterday, the sitting arrangements was the Deputy President, William Ruto. There seems to be some form of you taking him out of the political equation. Is he of no importance in regards to the new dawn now the BBI is heralding in the country?
I don't think that there is any basis to say that he's being taken out of the equation. I was at State House on Tuesday. The Deputy President was there when the report was presented to the President. I was at Bomas yesterday. I saw him there. He spoke very well in support of the report and encouraged us both at State House and at Bomas to have an honest conversation on the report. So I do not think that there is anyone so far that has claimed that he's being sidelined. And it is not the intention of the founders of a BBI or the conceivers of a BBI process to leave out anyone.
Okay, we'll come to that, because there are also issues about the factional issues that played out with regards to Junet Mohammed's sentiments to Senator Murkomen, who before taking over the podium said, "Nyinyi mwende msuluhishe mambo Jubilee huko nje." But I'll come to that. Honorable Wavinya Ndeti, the report recommends a raft of issues, that 6 changes at the devolved system of governance, increase in revenue allocation, the fight against corruption in the country, awarding the whistleblowers 5%, and the restructuring of the IEBC, that is the Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission, that the ODM party and generally the establishment has had problem with. When you look at that, is it an all-encompassing one that will open up the new door for Kenya and perhaps remedy, or is this the antidote perhaps to the problems that bedevil this country after every electoral cycle?
Now, let us look at the origin of the BBI. When the former Prime Minister and the President went to, when they met and talked, their common interest was the issues that were really affecting this country. And that is why we were asked from different parties. We also nominate people to get to the BBI commission so that they can go to the ground and try to find out what is happening, what ails Kenyans. And whatever we got is what Kenyans feel.
Okay.
Yeah? And what is in that report, really, if we make those changes, it will heal Kenya. Yeah, it will heal Kenya.
Okay, I'll come to Edwin Sifuna. I need to set up your mic because there's some sound problem. The mic man will be coming over here. Secretary Sifuna, when we look at the developments that led to the handshake that started in terms of 2017, the two gentlemen came together. There was that economic confidence. At least the investor fear was gone. Capital flight was addressed. But then again, the problem is that we have had factional support for either side. We have one side that supported the DP. We had one side that supported your party leader and the president. And then we have this report coming out that again signals or the smoke that is billowing out of it is that there are going to be more political divisions in the country. Then going forward, how do we address these divisions if we are to venture into 2022 as a cohesive country?
Ndugwe, I honestly don't see where you are seeing those smokes of division. Because yesterday the entire country, the entire political leadership was at Bomas. Every person who spoke very positively about the report and encouraged everyone to approach that report with an open mind. I remember the ANC party leader, Honorable Musalia Mudavadi, even said that initially he had concerns about how the process was conceived, but that there is now an opportunity because I remember some of the gripe that ANC and even Wiper had with the process was that it was conceived by the two leaders initially on their own. But that now there is opportunity for every one of us as Kenyans to be able to weigh in, which is why you are seeing that there are increasing calls, Ndugu, that politicians and members of parliament or party leaders do not hijack this process so that it becomes an elite project, that this project remains the project of Wanjiku. The views in that report, as I said, are not the views of any expert. They are the views of Kenyans, ordinary Kenyans, on how they perceive the problems of a country and the solutions that they have proffered there. It is up to Kenyans as well to weigh in on the final form and structure of the solution that will be proffered.
Given that and the fact that you have mentioned need for the cushioning of the report and what it recommends, and then again, perhaps prevent or block away the members of the political establishment. But then again, even as you say that, there is already the ground set, or the ground has been scratched for the politicians or the political establishment or the members to roll on, because in the build-up to the report itself, we have seen some shooting it down, watering it down literally. We have seen the likes of Kiharu Member of Parliament, Ndindi Nyoro, calling it Blue Band Initiative. The Malindi Member of Parliament calls it Beba Baba Ikulu Initiative. So divisions politically were there. Therefore, going forward, we anticipate that, isn't it? And how do we cushion? How do you wrap it in immunity?
Yeah, actually, it has been very interesting to see people who hate the mother now claiming to love the child, because the BBI report is a product of the handshake itself. Those, monikers that you're talking about, whether it is in Baba, Beba, Baba, they were being directed at the handshake itself. There were people who actually had misconceptions about what the handshake was all about. There was all sorts of rumors flying around that this was about 2022, but now that there's clarity, and I remember those of us in ODM, because we had clarity from the start, we talked to our party leader and he talks to us every day, that this was not about 2022, it was about a greater project, the project called Kenya. So now, everybody has had opportunity to interact with the report, they continue to interact with the report, they have seen that there is really nothing to fear, that we have actually now all accepted that it is a process we support, we are coming to the table, everybody's views. Nobody is going to have a lesser voice. Everybody's views are going to count. And at the end of the day, we hope that we can arrive at the destination together.
Okay. Honorable Priscilla Nyokabi, thank you for coming, and I do appreciate your time. On Monday, the women entity issued a presser with no regard for political affiliation or the divide, and that was a general coming together of the women from the political establishment and some who have a say in the society. When you look at the BBI report, of course, the build-up, the tense political moments, and what it recommends now, or what it intends to remedy across the county's 47 units and in the country generally, do you see it as perhaps one that will free Kenya from the shackles of violence every time we have an election? We have had the skirmishes of 2007, 2013, there is also a contested 2017, until the Supreme Court intervened and quashed the presidential election. Does it perhaps, in your view, lessen down or tone down on the political violence in the country and uncertain times after every electoral cycle?
I think the report does a good job of providing more inclusion than what we have with the 2010 Constitution, and really a fair attempt at making sure you don't have the winner-take-all approach, because that has been a problem. And so once you correct the winner-take-all approach, that in some ways reduces the tension that you have with elections. But then there are other blocks of reforms or proposals in the document, the devolution, because the idea is to reduce political competition. It shouldn't mean that when your leader is not elected, you don't get services. So can we free the services? Can we free the devolved structures and have more service delivery there. I'm also very happy about gender inclusion, and I like that the report addresses the different types of inequalities that there have been. So ethnicity is not just the only one, so there has also been a lot of gender exclusion, and so this time we see a lot of gender inclusion. We are very excited about the proposal to have a gubernatorial candidate who is male and a running mate who is female, so that puts 50-50 representation at that very high level of county leadership. But then, you know, even as we say that the same should be extended to national level, I think that type of gender inclusion is good. There is proposal also, you know, but from a distance of proportional representation in the assembly. So there can be other ways of making the electoral process more inclusive. The leader of official opposition also now gets to come onto the National Assembly and to participate in building the democracy. So a much, much better effort. And that is why there was no opposition to the document. I mean, if you oppose this document, you would really look, either you don't like Kenya or you don't know Kenya or there's a problem with you. So this document has cushioned itself from the divisive politics that we expected. It speaks to the issues and it speaks to the resolutions, but the hard work now begins of implementing it. I was in another show yesterday and we lamented that we've come to this point before. I mean, we were here in 2010.
Yes.
We were here in 2003 as the most optimistic country. We've been here before, so one of the other risks is we get into a euphoric moment, we go into a high drive, we become Kenyans for 10 days, and then
start taking over.
Then it's like a small break, and then we go back to tearing each other. So I'm hoping that this one, with the leadership of the president and the former prime minister, this is also the highest level of leadership we have received. So a lot of marks for the type of political leadership we have in this direction. The deputy president also coming along. So this time we look like we have the magic bullet.
Yes.
I hope that we don't lose it. You know, that we don't just have it for 10 days and then the magic bullet disappears before we correct the problems we have.
Prevention from taking the wayward direction. I come to you, Honorable former Member of Parliament Kathiani. Your input into that, and do you think what we have included into that report, of course, the task force assumption that I'm Kenyan, we are Kenyans, and our inputs were taken equally or are reflected in the task force report, which was unveiled by the president yesterday. Do you think, or is there the sort of bedrock belief in you that this is going to be the end point of ethnic antagonism in the country and perhaps address the problems that always punctuate the establishment after every electoral cycle?
We've started a journey. A journey that we all started yesterday. We have to walk together. We have to make sure we work towards uniting Kenyans. You know, during the elections, everyone goes back to their cocoons. Yeah, and this has happened. Everyone goes to mobilize their tribe, and they use their tribe to get where they want to get. If we, to get into positions of politics, if we can stop all this, using this, the BBI, and so be it. And every Kenyan should just be ready that we work together to make things better for us. Because you see, after every 5 years, after elections, we lose almost 1 year or 2 years. People fighting, we settle, maybe for 1 year. After we settle for 1 year, now the second, the third, and the fourth and the fifth year again, we start again. So business is also affected. Yeah, people who do business in this country, they can tell you how it really affects, how the politics affect their businesses. So I'm saying this is a journey that we have started, and we need to all work together as a team. We need to listen to each other. Here, nobody knows. There is no Mr. Know-it-all. We all have to bring, and let not anyone purport or lie that they have read that document very well. We all have to go back now, sit, read that document, sentence by sentence, come up with our opinions. And everyone's opinion should really not be disregarded. Everyone's opinion should be taken. We talk, we agree, we polish what needs to be polished, and we move together, having the interest of Kenya at heart. And I can tell you, like Wiper today had a meeting, and we agreed on way forward now to start engaging on the document. We look at the document, we come up with our opinions, and then we come up with one common, at least we come up with what we want. Maybe changes or agreeing with the document after reading, we come up with one with a good opinion, at least for the benefit of the Kenyans. And I want to take you back to 2017. When we go back to 2017, there was the opposition, there was Jubilee, and there was
NASA.
Yeah?
Which, according to the SecGen, might be the departure point of the ODM for the conclusion of the Kibra by-election.
Which is okay. You know, this Kenya is a democratic country, yeah? Whatever decision want to make, you cannot stop them. But you see, those small things should not really divide us, eh?
Okay.
You know, those are small issues in this country. They should not really divide us. At the end of the day, let me tell you, we are Kenyans. Yeah, I want to take you back. There was NASA and there was Jubilee. Yeah, NASA got, I think, about 6 million votes. Jubilee got 7 million votes. In NASA, there were leaders who also contributed to having the 6 million votes. In Jubilee, there are leaders who contributed to having the 6 million votes. Yeah, and then when you look back, the country was torn, yeah, into two. Yeah, people were ready to secede. You know, the country was really broken up. And if you remember, my party leader used to say, at the end of the day, we are Kenyans. Let us sit down and talk. Yeah, okay. And I really appreciate, he was the deputy president of Prime Minister,
yes.
Raila Amolo Odinga, and I really appreciate him going, at least meeting the president,
yes,
and talking to him so that the Kenya can have peace. So if we all are, the bottom line here, I don't think we should continue getting divided, or we didn't watu wakuwe na interests zao za kisiasa over the document, because some of us will not accept that. We have to look at this document, make it good for Kenyans. Yeah? And it should just be for Kenyans. As my colleagues have said here, it should be our Wanjiko's document, not anybody's document. And that Wanjiko's document can only bring peace, yeah, if we distribute power equally, and everyone is comfortable.
Sawa. SecGen Sifuna, if I may come to you, one of the contentious issues that equally is very pivotal significance to the going forward of this country is the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, IEBC. It failed on 2 occasions to be the fair umpire in the conduction of the election, especially in 2017. And you equally, your party, had pressurized the Isaac Hassan Commission out of office. We had the Wafula Chebukati Commission some months to the election. And now there is a plan, or as recommended in the report, of having a more or less similar IPPG model of 1997 elections. And the Jubilee Party equally are complaining about the IEBC. All the political entities and stakeholders are having concerns about the referee, that is the IEBC. If this is adopted, do you think that it can, sort of prevent bloody confrontation? Because equally in 1997, when we had the same model, 1,500 Kenyans died in the build-up to the elections that were equally contested when Kibaki moved to court to contest the outcome after Moi's re-election.
First, I need to correct you that the IPPG was in fact a product of the 97 election, that the only election that has been largely acknowledged as having been peaceful is the 2002 election, which was actually run by a commission that was a product of the IPPG. 2 things. First of all, as the ODM party, we are very happy to see some of the recommendations that have been made by Kenyans themselves. One of them is the issue of the disbanding of the current IEBC. One of the biggest criticisms that has been leveled against the party has been that after the handshake, we forgot about electoral justice. But this is an issue that has always been on the back of our minds. People said, oh, you forgot about the IEBC, you're going into Kibra, you're going into Ganda ward by-elections. Nothing has been done about those commissions, but we knew there was going to be a time that was coming for us to be able to address the issue of a commission. It doesn't matter what the current chair says. Personally, I've interacted with him. I don't want to say too much about him, but I would rather that we have a commission that enjoys the confidence of the political players. If Wavinya, for instance, is seconded from Wiper to be a commissioner there, her party leader can rest assured that whatever schemes the other commissioners might come up with, she's not going to be a part of it, because she owes her allegiance to Wiper. The same with me. If I was seconded as ODM commissioner to IBC, it would be the same. So it would provide an automatic checks and balances. We see things that we are proud of. In the last election, for instance, this issue of dealing with corruption by ensuring that all public servants do not do any business with government was actually in the NASA manifesto, we have seen these things. When we talk about an increase of allocation to the county governments, this was actually in our Okoa Kenya bill. So we are saying as a party that there are things that we see here that are familiar, that are our signature as a political party. Honorable Nyokabi has talked about the issue of gender rule.
Yes.
We are saying there are good things. We can actually improve it. For instance, what the report is saying, it is actually agreeing with, there was a decision of the High Court that said it is up to the political parties to ensure that the two-thirds gender rule is complied with. That I, as SG of ODM, have to ensure that my party list complies with that two-thirds gender rule. The only challenge is that, my brother, if ODM has a party list that complies with that two-thirds gender rule, if, for instance, I've said that in Dagoretti North, where we are sitting now, I will have a woman candidate, I expect that Wiper Jubilee have to do that, because otherwise we're wasting time. If I put a woman candidate here, and then you have a man, 10 men facing her here in Dagoretti, then we're not doing anything. So we can actually enrich this document. And she mentioned something about proportional representation, which is what actually happens in South Africa, that people do not elect individual members of parliament. If we have 290 constituencies, you vote for a political party all across the country.
Yes.
And the seats are allocated on a percentage basis. If ODM gets 50% of the votes, they get 50% of the seats. And then the list that comes from ODM of the members of parliament to join the National Assembly is a zebra pattern, where if the first name is a man, the second name must be a woman. And that's the only way you comply with that two-thirds gender rule. So we are saying, for instance, for me, as the SG of the party, I've already called my, we have a standing legal and constitutional committee at ODM. We also have a standing technical committee. We are calling a joint meeting of those two committees tomorrow. We will go through this report, because some of these things, even when you read them on your own, it is not the same as when you read them with your colleagues who
to
are
bring
also,
a better understanding.
Yes, who are also lawyers, who have experience. They have seen the implications of some of these recommendations. Then as a party, we are going to give what we think is an enrichment of the document. For us, we have advocated and have stood for the Bomas draft as the clearest representation of the aspirations of the people of Kenya. In that Bomas draft, we had a very strong Prime Minister, for instance. And there are benefits, there are arguments for a proper dispersion of power from an imperial presidency. So you are going to see, going forward, as a party, we will put forward what we see as good, what is can be made better in the document, and then from there we will be able to move forward. But I can tell you for a fact that when it comes to the issue of the IEBC, and I was very happy when the president spoke at
yesterday,
Bomas. He said we want to create a level playing field so that whoever is a candidate in 2022, when you come, you can expect that you're going to go through a fair process. If Chebukati thinks that he was going to run the elections of 2022, we have heard this before from his predecessor, Isaac Hassan, but he still went home.
And equally the disowning of the management of the elections by the late Samuel Kivuti in 2007.
Absolutely.
Honorable Priscilla Nyokabi, do we have time? We go on break, come back? Yes, okay, we hit the break because I don't want to cut you short in between the expression of your sentiments. And we are coming back after the short break. The hashtag on Twitter is News Compass. I'll sample some of your feedback here on the Twitter handle as we get into the second segment of the discussion with the SG ODM party, former Nyeri Women Rep Priscilla Nyokabi, and former Kadhiani Member of Parliament, Honorable Wavinya Ndeti. Stay tuned. We are coming back after the short break. Welcome back. You're watching the program into the second segment. Sample some of your feedback on Twitter. And of course, it does pertain the discussion that we are having on set. Kenyan says, what are your thoughts on the youth's role in the national development if the BBI report is to be put into practice or perspective? And Jerry Nyandarua says, Nyandua rather, the BBI was just a hot air. Now ODM are scampering in all directions after realizing that they were played, whether implemented or not. It makes no difference to Kenyans. I'll just couple that with what Francis Atwoli said yesterday. Francis says, I see Kenyans working hard wherever they are, in offices and out in the hot sun sector. Even politicians working very well until we get close to elections. Then brothers become Kimundu, etc. This is where you should train your eyes on. There are many to just want to get one more. And Kajohi John says, zero-sum game, in quotes people. We still fight for executive president position if the president has powers to fire the prime minister. No need of wasting time and money changing the current constitution. And Warren says, this is the final one. After more than a year on the road, I'll hope that this is not all about the BBI, or this is all the BBI is about. There are more wishes than concrete steps to rid the country of socio-economic ills. Equally, we'll come to the matters that pertain the economy here as we continue with the discussion. I was on you. I'll come to you on that specific item. Honorable Priscilla Nyokabi, when you look at the element of here encompassing all Kenyans, cohesion, a united nation going forward, we still have divisions, some who harbor, or the underneath script, perhaps the sort of the echo chamber of the public views is that, especially to the allies of the DP, they cried first. Now they seem to be a bit contented because their fear generally was about, if we are to analyze the political establishment, to have an executive prime minister, a total parliamentary system of governance in Kenya, as is the case with Britain, Japan, or Ethiopia. Will this perhaps be, again, an ushering point of what we witnessed in the divisions that followed the 2005 referendum during the Chungwa and the Ndizi votes, in which the ODM party was born out of that and carried the day?
I don't think that this time we need the very, very heavy polarized divisions. We are looking for a democracy that is homegrown. We're not even looking to copy from South Africa or from Denmark or from anybody. We have our communities here, we have our diversity, we have our governance. We have our history, we have our experiments. We've come to a time when we can now pick a shoe that fits us. We can now tailor a cloth according to our body. We can no longer buy a suit from out there and try to wear it. The 2010 constitution, by the way, one of the things the BBI is saying is that we have a good constitution. Okay. If you look at those reforms that are proposed there, they are software issues. It's behavior, it's trust deficit, it is lack of ethnic relations. It is not that's why, for example, the prime minister is not even a strong prime minister. You could actually put that prime minister in the current constitution because that's what you have. It's a mix of what you have with the majority leader Duale and CS Matiang'i. What CS Matiang'i is doing on one end and what now majority leader is doing in parliament. So it's just to combine the two in one person. That's just what it says. So that the problem is not too much the constitution. It's actually much more the trust deficit, the national ethos. And if you remember the speech of the Tanzanian minister, you know, some people are God-sent. You know, they are just God-sent. You don't even know why he came at the time when he came. Just after the thief, you know, I mean, had we gone on with that thief for a little longer? I mean, first of all, kudos to Bwana Haji for being able to calm the hall following the Murkomen issue and the thief that was there. But the speech of the Tanzanian minister was about killing the nations and becoming Kenyans. I don't know why we are the only ones who have remained with the tribal kingdoms ahead of the national kingdom. So what the BBI report is telling us, let's put the national kingdom first and then the tribal kingdoms second. And you know, it is so bad. As guys, even when you go to the US, you are asked, wewe ni Mjaluo ama wewe ni Mkikuyu? Can you imagine? The Tanzania group meets, Uganda group meets, Tanzania, wewe ni Mkenya? You know, you have to be treated, especially because they already know you. You may not, you know, I mean, it's a bit of an embarrassing situation for all of us. The issues that concern us on health, the issues that concern us on youth unemployment. There are unemployed youths in Central, there are unemployed youths in Nyanza, there are unemployed youths in Coast, there are unemployed youths in Ukambani. Unemployed youths are everywhere. So what we now need to do is not worry about the division. When employment comes, it will come for all the youths of our country. And we go back to that speech of the Tanzanian minister, kuwa Mkenya kwanza. And I like how he kept giving the examples. Kama huyo angekuwa Kenya, angekuwa Mkipsigis. And then, you know, want to ask, even some Kipsigis respond. And kama angekuwa Mjaluo, some Luos respond. Kama angekuwa Mkikuyu, some Kikuyus respond. As though we are not even getting the message. Yeah. We should be Kenyans. And I hope that this report makes us Kenyans. And it starts with us leaders. And it is bad. I mean, he and I have worked in civil society and in other sectors. Yes. Before you come to politics, you don't even realize what tribe you are. When you come to our politics, my good Lord, you are daily, even as though you might forget which tribe you come from. So the political class, this message is also to the leadership. Can we first be Kenyans? Can we deal with the questions that are Kenyan? And for questions that are Kenyan, there are no divisions. Okay. The Health Service Commission, for example, whether our medics, our health workers need a health service commission, why would that matter which part of the country we come from? That's a substantive matter that we put on the table. It's just, does it affect devolution? Does it strengthen devolution? Does it enhance service delivery? Was it envisaged in the constitution that we have? There would be no tribes. No, there isn't a tribe that doesn't need health care. Sickness doesn't know tribe either. Sickness doesn't know tribe either. The issues on the economy, the the top-down economy that we have, and then now making it bottoms-up, the small-scale farmers, Jua Kali traders, barbers, saloons. That also doesn't know any tribes. So this is the one report where being tribal does not count. And I hope that with IEBC, because our elections are tribal census. Also, we stop having a tribal census during elections.
Okay.
We now have an election that is based on taking the country forward, not how many, because our elections are so simple. Wakikuyu, mkae kando, Wajaluo, pandei, Wakalenjin, pandei. You don't need a manifesto, you don't need any policy, you just need to round up your tribe. That now is what the BBI is seeking to kill. You will no longer need to round up your tribe. What you now need to do is compete on a level playing ground and on issues that move our country forward. And even if you lose, ni ile story ya Mandago. Election imeisha.
Kwa roho safi.
Kwa roho safi. Una breathe out and unasonga mbele.
Well, very interesting. I'll come to you, Honorable Wavinya. Let me just seek some clarity here, because you also mentioned the economic aspect here. And Kenyans are worried about the unsustainable debt level in the country, the sort of the failure by the government, to be specific, President Kenyatta's government, to end the begging bowl culture, the rising or the unparalleled debt seeking, going around with the bowl seeking more funds. And if you cut through the economic jargon in the country, what the government has done is sought soft loans, especially from China and Saudi Arabia, where there are no rigorous conditions, as is the case with the IMF and the World Bank. And they did issue a warning. And just in the same day, Parliament ignored that advice and voted to increase the country's debt ceiling to 9 trillion Kenya shillings, up from 7.5 trillion Kenya shillings. If we are to turn around, this legacy appears to be tarnished by allegations of corruption, incompetence, and patronage. Then we have to be very transparent and accountable about economic affairs in the country, isn't it?
Yes, that is indeed true. We have to be very prudent in the economic affairs, and also very strategic in how we borrow. But our politics affects our economy. So once we have bad politics, it affects the economy in a big way. And I like what the president was saying. Nobody will give you a long-term loan for as long as you are a fragile state. I know the sad thing with our country, despite all of the milestones we have made, we remain on the fragile list. I mean, we sometimes are on the same list with Somalia and Sudan and Sierra Leone. We are on the same list in Africa with countries that are in turmoil, with countries that are in war, failed states basically. And why? Because of our tribalism. That even us in the radar, we appear like a country that could go up. We could go up in flames anytime. So now we need to stop being on that radar, and then the economics will work. But a couple of other things also, like having ministers who can be held accountable.
Yes, sourced from Parliament.
Sourced from Parliament and also accountable to Parliament is also very helpful, because these are questions now for the Minister of Finance and Minister of Treasury. Why are we borrowing? And when we borrow, are we borrowing capital expenditure, or are we now borrowing Peter to pay Paul? That, I think there's a suspicion there's a bit of that going on. But now the Minister of Finance doesn't answer to people's reps. And so you don't get the rigorous accountability. And I like that the shadow cabinet has also been introduced. Now we would have the minister in charge of treasury from the ruling coalition, and we would have a shadow minister. You remember when Bill Okero was shadow minister of finance? He used to really ask strong questions to the minister of finance. So that has got to go on. But also the fight against corruption, because the worst is to borrow and misuse. You could borrow and put the money in railway, put the money in roads, put the money in infrastructure. That is good borrowing. But to borrow and have the money stolen, I think that's also very painful. Okay. So all of those matters are related. And I'm happy that the youths, I'm still hoping that the president might give the youth round table, because the youth now need to come into the conversation on corruption. This is our future. This is the youth's future. And so if this future is eroded, remember we all borrow the country for future generations. Yes. We are living in this space on behalf of the future generations. So have the youth now start also a conversation on corruption. What does it mean to have corruption?
More or less, you mentioned an important element about the shadow cabinet. I'll come to you. And hopefully it's going to be one that is as vibrant as we have in the UK.
Oh, if we have the ODM in the shadow cabinet, that would be the real cabinet.
Going into the real cabinet.
When we look at Kenya, we should really look at, if we look at our economy, we are talking about borrowing and all that, but when you look at our economy, we are spending more on wage bill than development. If the wage bill in this country is 70% and the development is 30%, where are we going? We need to look at how we do business in this country, and also bring performance contracting strong in the government. Yeah, because when you look at all our parastatals, most of our parastatals should not even be depending on the government. They should be making their own monies, and even contributing to treasury. Why are we not doing it? Yeah. we can borrow, but you also have to learn how to generate income. It is high time we really started thinking about this country as a business entity. What do we need to do to generate more income for this country? Because expenditure will be there. You understand? Expenditure will be there. People will have to be employed. Yeah? Development will have to be done. So what do we need to do as a country to make sure that we increase, yeah, our revenues, yeah, and stop the leakages that we are having on our revenues, yeah? You have some going to corruption, yeah? We are losing revenue because of people not performing, okay? Maybe sometimes KRA not able to get to areas where they should get. There are a lot of things that we should really look into this country. It's not, Kenya is not poor. When you look at even all the other countries in East Africa, this country is not poor. It's just that we have to change the way we do things in this country and be more serious. And then we'll not even be complaining of borrowing because we are able to pay.
Okay, a case of robbing Peter and paying Paul. I kindly just want you to respond to this tweet by Jerry, who says the BBI was just a hot air. Now the ODM party is scampering in all directions after realizing that they were played. We don't know what he means. Whether implemented or not, it makes no difference to Kenyans. What's your response to that, owing to what the court to section did say yesterday, that more or less what we have now, or the recommendations of BBI, more or less is having Duale as the Prime Minister, therefore there was no sort of the real change that we expected out of the task force's recommendations in the report?
You know, my brother, my time as Secretary General of ODM has been some of the most interesting days of my life. I'm doing about 2 years now. It's quite interesting. We won Kibra by a landslide, but somebody else declared that they were victorious for some other matrices that are not used in determining who the winner was. They even threw a bash. So even in this BBI, we are being told that we have been shortchanged. I don't understand how we've been shortchanged. I have just taken you through some of the things that we see. When we look into this report, we can see a reflection of ourselves. All these issues, when we talk about reforming the IBC, increasing the county allocation, this health service commission was something that was promised by our party leader to the doctors during the strike, for instance. So we don't see it as shortchanging. I don't understand what he or she means by saying we are scampering in all directions. We are actually very proud of this particular document. ODM, as I told you, just today we were launching our permanent headquarters. When somebody builds a permanent house as opposed to a mabati structure or living in a rented house, it tells you that they are not going anywhere. And I want to correct my sister Nyokabi that this time around we are not going to be the ones to be looked upon to provide a strong opposition. No, we are going to be in government this time around. Sometimes it's very frustrating, my brothers, as a politician, that people see all the good things in ODM. When there's a problem, I saw some people protesting somewhere in Mombasa, and they're asking, why is Raila silent? But when it comes to the ballot, when you tell them that we have all these possible solutions for the problems that, affect us as a country, they don't want to vote for ODM. We are prepared, we are preparing to be able to form government the next time. This is why political parties exist. This is why we are setting up all the structures that we're setting up. We have opened offices all across the country. We are happy that with the handshake we can come to Nyeri, and I'm going to open the ODM office in Nyeri. She and Jubilee, they are free to come to Nyando and open an office there so that we are able to talk to these Kenyans, because you can see that the choices of the so-called majority, they affect all of us. There are people who were very enthusiastic about voting this government in, and we are all suffering. And we see them online, they cry, they say, oh, if we knew this Reza was coming to cut all of us, we would not have done what we have done. Which is why this BBI is so important, that we can have an open and honest conversation. She has pointed out things that really, one time we were on a trip with some members of Jubilee in China. Yes. And it was a bit embarrassing because when it comes to politics in this country, people can always tell that these are Kenyans because we never seem to agree. We asked ourselves the question, is it possible as Kenyans, if we sat together, you come from Jubilee or whatever party, you come from ODM, can we agree on 3 things that we say are true in Kenya, whether it is you're from ODM or Jubilee? Does the sun rise from the east and set in the West when you are a member of Jubilee. We can just get 3 things that we can agree on. And I'm happy. For instance, when she says about the issue of the Health Service Commission, it is an acknowledged fact that the devolution structure that we have right now, where we devolve certain functions but the resources don't follow, that the central government wants to retain the resources here, for instance, through the supply of medicine and all these other, we have all these parastatals that are essentially central government agencies, yet health is supposed to be a devolved function. You have seen all the strikes, all the fights between the governors and medical personnel in the counties. It is a solution that the people of Nyeri will accept as much as the people of Kisumu. Okay. So this is what we would like for us to happen. And one of the problems with this report, my brother, if you read it, it says that only 7,000 people out of 45 million people actually came across to present their views. The people you hear talking now are those ones who refused. They said, because this thing is 2 people, we don't understand it, we don't want to give our views. For us who went there to give views, that's why it's easy for me to point out things that I can relate to and say this one. So we want to give the rest, including those who are talking now on Twitter. Yes, now this is a chance for everyone to actually contribute and say here, because now the trust deficit that Honorable Wavinya was talking about has been taken out. Everybody now understands what the BBI was about. It was not about making Raila president. It was not about 2022. Now they can contribute to the national conversation. Okay, as many Kenyans are, of course, very much looking forward into that. Honorable Nyokabi, I'll come to you. But you mentioned about the Kibra elections, and it's worth noting that equally the build-up or the period towards the by-election was equally punctuated by violence, name-calling. And I just want to quote you on what you said in one of the campaign rallies in the constituency. Your candidate, of course, ended up winning. You said in Swahili, tarehe 7 tunataka kufurusha hawa kunguni wameingia huku wanataka kutusumbua. Na kuongeza ile amri Simba Arati alitoa, Mheshimiwa Simba Arati na vijana wako niko na international tender ya watu wawili. You specified Didmas Barasa, and you said wameniambia wako fit kama mimi, wanaweza kimbia 100 meters in 1 minute and 59 seconds. You continue to say, wa kwanza ni Didmas Barasa, nataka mtoe yeye Woodley mbio, afike kule mwisho wa hii constituency in 1 minute and 59 seconds. Hiyo inaitwa Didmas challenge. Umekubali hiyo, the crowd responded positively. And you said finally, mwingine ni Khalwale. Pia yeye akimbia ile kitu, wanahitaji ni pace setters. And pretty much another genocidal statement by an ODM member of parliament, Makadara constituency, Aladwa. He at one point in 2016-15 said, in a video that went viral, that was seen by millions of Kenyans, that for Raila Odinga to be a president, Kenyans may have to spill blood. So if the BBI report is to curb the ethnic animosity in this country, then you pretty much feature at the top list, isn't it? Actually, let me tell you, I have no qualms at all being called out for anything that I said, because I take responsibility for everything that I say. And I've said that I am only responsible for the things that come out of my mouth. How they reach your ears and how you interpret them is really up to you. One day, unfortunately. Up to today, I am telling you, Honorable Khalwale actually issued a press conference that same day when there was an election. And he said that there was nothing untoward. In fact, he was very happy with the process. There was allegations he lost phones. He said he had all his phones. The Jubilee candidate, Mariga, in fact, hours after we declared victory at around 7:30, he called our candidate and he said that he had had a very peaceful campaign and that really there was nothing to cry about. So I don't understand when people try and make a mountain out of a molehill, because what we know as ODM, we always win elections. The biggest problem has always been that at the point of the voting itself, there is corruption of voters through voter purchase. There is corruption of the results through shenanigans that are played by IBC. This time round, and our supporters, especially as the SG of a party, our supporters expect vigilance from us. We knew those 2 individuals were the ones who had been tasked with actually distributing money on the election day. Do you have evidence? I have evidence. I have evidence, and when I'm called upon by an authority, yes, I will present it. Okay. I don't have qualms with that. I'll come to Honorable. Just a minute, let me seek some clarity. And for Nani's statement, yes, Aladwa's statement, yes, I believe he was arrested, prosecuted by the NCIC, yes, and discharged. Which fundamentally is unhealthy and unhelpful, isn't it? Even if you have the evidence, Sergeant Sifuna. You have asked for evidence. I'm telling you I have it. In the event you present to the authorities that are mandated constitutionally, yes,
That's another chapter. But then again, the important element here is the language, the tone that you have used in the build-up to that. And
I don't see anything wrong with the things that I said.
This led to Didmas Baraza taken in rounds, and then again his cup presumably ended up in Junaid Mohammed's head, who again said hini ya mwizi mwenye alikuwa anataka ku access bedroom. I mean, this is the kind of language that the BBI will take.
First of all, when we say bedroom, we used bedroom as an allegory. You know, this is a figure of speech to mean that this is our stronghold, not territory. During the campaigns, all these political parties were allowed to campaign. I personally, there was a very famous photograph. It was actually put on one of the newspaper
as you passed
headlines.
Alongside.
Yes, we met with this convoy of Mariga and we shook hands. Out of the 3 months of campaigns in Kibra, you want to point me to one significant event that you claim that, oh, we had locked out people. If we wanted violence in Kibra, for instance, we would not have allowed anyone to campaign there. If really, when we say bedroom, we mean you can't come in. We said you can come in, you can talk to these people. You saw the president yesterday, and he received the biggest and most secretive dossiers from the security agencies. He said there was no violence there was only leaders throwing stones, by which he meant Khalwale, because he was the only leader who was captured throwing stones. So in Kibra, and I'm telling you, even Wavinya here, there is places where she considers her bedroom. Not to mean that I can't go in there.
Okay.
Yes. Not to mean that I can. No, political. It's allegory. It is a way, a manner of speaking.
Yes.
If you want to make a mountain out of a molehill, you can do it. But I am telling you this: that Kibra is behind us. The president said as much. We have a new chapter. We are discussing things that are way bigger. When you talk about the software of the country that my sister is talking about,
yes,
this is not things like the ones that you want to bring.
The point is, Sergeant Sifuna, the point is then that if we are to go forward, then we have to live better. At the moment we seem to have, if we look back at our history, that we have started on the wrong footing.
Let me tell you.
To just expand this broad-based sort of discussion is that, again, the BBI report is also sought to address issues that the DP at some point said on an international TV that people in Western or Nyanza, Kenya, were militias.
Let me tell you what the BBI will help.
Can I tell you that?
Let me answer.
You know what leaders in this country seriously need to be? They need to be responsible what comes out of their mouth. If I go and stand somewhere now where I have supporters and I say something, it will happen. Yeah, it will happen. Sometimes we as leaders, sincerely speaking, and I'm not here talking about anybody, but we need to be responsible. Our people listen to us. What is it that comes out of our mouths? We need to be careful. And if we continue like that, there are some areas maybe where people will go and they will not be allowed to come in.
Okay.
It's just that some other communities are more tolerant than others. So what we need to do now is to try and be tolerant to each other as Kenyans, and also, you know, let me tell you, I remember we have a Bishop Kivuva who used to tell, he keeps on telling us, monkey see, monkey do. You understand? If this our people see whatever we are doing, they will do the same. If I go now and tell them, oh, let us do this because this person has done this, they will do it. Yeah, because I will be leading them to do it. So we need to be very careful as leaders, and I'm not condemning anybody, but I'm saying whatever really, all the leaders, whatever comes out of our mouth, we need to be very careful and let us know we have 75%. 75% of the population of this country are young people. They are young people. And if it's very easy for a young person to just or do you know, just take over. It's very easy for young people
to be brainwashed.
So we need to be very careful.
Can I say this?
We need to be very careful.
Just very briefly, that where the hope for some of these things is in future elections. First of all, some of the things that you saw happening in Kibra were drawn out of this fear that people have, that it is not enough for you to go and sell your manifesto to the people. That in fact there are people who sit behind here, instead of going to express what they want to do for the people in a way that can convince them, they are scheming on how they are going to steal the election. If there was confidence, for instance, in our electoral management bodies, there would even be no need for Priscilla here to have agents during elections. In the US, people don't even know who the chairman of the electoral body in the US is. It is networks. No one even cares. It is networks such as yourself that declare results because of the confidence we have. That I remember one time resident in the US was asked, when you cast your vote, how sure are you that it counts? They said they just know it counts. This is where we need to get. I do not need to put vote protection measures in place. I do not need to follow the people who have money to bribe voters. This is the new Kenya that we want. And once we achieve that, all of these things that you are saying, by the way, will disappear. And I'm telling you, as a leader, first of all, Wavinya, I want to advise you. I don't fear condemnation. Public condemnation comes with the space, with the territory. You have uttered things that you've been condemned for in the past. It doesn't really.
I try not to Sifuna.
No, but it has happened.
No, but
you try.
No.
You
as
try,
a mother
but I'm saying,
and a lady politician,
in
I always try
in the
to
history
be
of your
mannerful.
politics,
Be on the straight and narrow.
in the history of
try.
your politics, if I pull all the clips of the things that you have said and the things you've been condemned about, it happens.
Okay.
It happens.
The point is that the political establishment, ever since 1992, after the first multi-party elections, has disserviced Kenyans with regards to ethnic divisions, fueling, funding all the divisions that we witnessed and the fractured society in the Kenyan society, in of course, the country. Yes, Honorable Nyokabi, you had a point.
Yes, I think just to say about the language, and I think that, I mean, Sifuna is doing a good job as the SG of the party, but there were excesses in that by-election, excesses on language, I guess from both sides, really. I mean, some of those, in fact, we were just recruiting for the NCIC then, the National Cohesion and Integration Commission, and that was one of our questions. As the chairman of the National Cohesion, so for the candidates who came, you saw what the conversations going on in Kibra. Would you have found that actionable? And many of them, including now the chairman, Dr. Samuel Kobia, did think that some of that was actionable language. Of course, there's a thin line between hate speech and freedom of expression. And you want to promote freedom of expression, and people have to look for votes in whichever way that they want to look for votes. But I think even as you look for votes, there are limits. And I think one of the things that I like about the report is that it proposes not only the National Cohesion and Integration Commission, but also ethics. That it may not be legal language, but it may be unethical. It is unethical to call for violence on anybody else. So it may not happen, but why are you calling for it? Why are you risking the calling for violence? And you know, in a country where people understand things, and I like what he's saying, how you understand things is up to you. But in some of the languages now, there are some particular words which when you use, they actually suggest violence. I also don't like that you yourself use the word genocidal. We must be very careful with the language that we use. This is a country that is really on ethnic relations are dicey. So we can say there's a bit of excess there, but let's also not take it to as far. Genocidal language is something else. That's what happened in Rwanda. Well,
spilling blood isn't a joke.
But let me tell you, here in Kenya, and even say when you action hate speech, you don't action it because it is genocidal. You action it because you think that there is a line that has been crossed. And what this report is trying to do, it has seen African countries that did not, is like a stoplight. Like if you continue the way you are going, you know, if we don't change, if we don't see the red color, if we don't see the red light, now we will go to the language that you're talking about. But if we see the red light, if we strengthen institutions, if we add ethics to the National Cohesion and Integration Commission, and I was really happy to learn about some of the things that they do, even in private. Sometimes it is not reprimanding a leader in public. That's not what is important. It is letting the leader know that as you are in Kibra, what you might have said or a word you might have used might be understood by another section of the society to mean this. And they give you a cessation notice. Once they give you a cessation notice, it means this is the line. Don't cross this line. Let's have friendly and as fiery campaigns, but let us not cross the line. And I think that if you look at that whole chapter, including this part on celebrating culture, we are now going to have 26th of December is the day that we celebrate culture. And we want to take diversity as a strength. You know, also this fight on tribalism sometimes makes diversity appear as a weakness. There are countries like Cameroon that have 250 tribes living in one country, and they don't flare up. We have only 40-something communities living together. So I think that the idea is diversity, celebrating our diversity, but coming together as a country where we must come together. But he is a lawyer like myself. Rules of the game. A weak IEBC now means the jungle out there. Rules of the game. A strong IEBC, strong rules, and everybody following the rules that we need to, including media and journalists as well.
A fair referee for that point,
Yeah, you know, I became a member of parliament in 2008, and I remember what happened. I remember going to Naivasha. I would never want to see anything like that again in this country. I was young. People were just divided by a road. You had a certain group of communities, of tribes on one side and the others on the other side. What was dividing them was us leaders, the police and the road. And people died. I came back to Mavoko. That time we had the Luos, everybody's there.
Yes.
So as a leader, you know what I said? All of you, if anybody fights in Mavoko or Kadiani, we'll just kick you out. We have learned of living here together peacefully, so let us live peacefully. Don't bring your fights here. Leaders also matter. And there was no fight. There was not any fighting in Mavoko. But where maybe sometimes people kept quiet in some areas, things just went haywire. I was living near Olendume Road.
Yes.
I remember leaving Nairobi to go to Athi River.
That was your constituency?
Yes. Where I come from, because you woke up in the morning, the ladies who are selling food there, the kiosk was on the road. You know, it was just chaos. You know, and let me tell you, most of our people now in this country are poor, okay? If we don't take care of these people, yeah, this country is going to be in big trouble. And I'm happy the president has seen it. Yesterday, he spoke about empowering the youth, the women. We need to do that, because when people are poor, they can do anything.
Okay.
You understand? They can even do anything for money. And you have the president talking, saying that, oh, these ones are running from this area, going to another area. You know, we need to empower our youth.
Okay.
We need to look where, you know, we need to really look at the key areas, yeah, that have even affected our country, that have made so many youth unemployment. We used to tell our children, you read, go to university, and then you get employed, go to college, and then you get employed. We need to provide them the tools to do business, even when they finish.
Then the report does say that there's need to turn our attention, adequate attention of the young people in this country.
They are more than 75%.
And when you look at the Edwin Sifuna section, if I may come to you, when you look at the makeup of the population, they form a lion's share of the Kenyan population, and you look at the developments in Sudan, bread and butter issue is very, very significant in the running of a country. It saw off Omar al-Bashir because people were hungry. And again, that speaks to the bulk of the Kenyan base the BBI has seen, if not addressed, is Kenya sitting on a ticking time bomb. How do we go about that?
Yeah, I think one of the leaders who spoke captured it well, that first we need to sort out our politics. I have to tell you that electoral violence, it's not always justifiable, but there is a reason why it happens. Once people feel that it is not a fair process, then they feel that they have to express themselves in another way. I was a very young man in 2007, and I voted for Raila. It was my second election to vote. And I remember the anger that I felt, and the hopelessness and helplessness, that you can win an election and somebody somewhere says you have not won, and that's the end of the thing, and then you're expected to just sit and do nothing. It is not natural for a human being upon whom stimuli such as that has been applied to just sit there and say, okay, wacha tu tusonge mbele, maisha itaendelea. We need to fix elections in this country. We must fix elections in this country. If you know that the system you're going into...
party primaries as well.
Is fair. Yeah, even party primaries. You see, and it's good she has reminded me that. Why was there, for instance, no violence during the ODM nominations? And yet we are hearing people crying that there was violence, that Didymus was harassed during the general election, the election itself. This is the reason we are saying, once you assure people that they are going into a fair process, you carry them along, you involve them, they can see the preparations, you ask them, is there anything else that we have missed out, can we add something? Then that process results in some confidence building. In the election itself in Kibra, we have a situation where even a key stakeholder such as a political party writes to the Electoral Commission raising certain concern, asking for things that are essentially ours by law, like the voters register. Our letters go unanswered. We have to threaten to storm the place, then they arrange for a meeting. They give you the register, they give you the wrong thing. You have to go to court the very last day of the election for you to be given something that the law says should be yours by right. You have an electoral commission that sees that the only electoral misconduct is actually violence. They are saying they are not seeing people being bribed, that they are not seeing public resources, a GK vehicle with GK plates. Everyone can see this is a public vehicle. The commission is blind to it. In that situation, my brother, people, there's suspicion that is arisen, and people feel that they need to take certain measures to be able to protect their vote. We need to sort this problem out. When it comes to the issue of youth, if we sort out our politics, then we sort out our economy.
Okay.
We must have an economy that works for all of us. What is it that was different in the Kibaki era? That even the projects that we were borrowing to finance were actually giving back to the economy. We have raised these concerns with the level of borrowing that we were seeing and the projects to which that borrowing was going. We have an SGR that is our biggest debt item, for instance, right now, that is not giving back into the economy. It is the feasibility, from the design stage to the feasibility, it was being conducted in a manner that was being forced, such that it had to be built, whether or not it made economic sense. If all this money that we were borrowing was actually giving back into the economy, generating jobs for young people, we would not have the problems that we are having.
Okay.
We had
a long-term investment.
Yes, but it still has to have money. But it is not a long-term payment, Mheshimiwa Wavinya. Even as we speak right now, we are paying. And the justification for such a project should be that after the grace period, because these loans have grace periods, if you are given a grace period of 5 years, it means that essentially after those 5 years, you should have accumulated enough income, or that the project should have started giving back into the economy for you to be able to pay for it.
Okay, Honorable Nyokabi, I'll come to you after this short commercial break on the program. When we come back, you will finish up, turn our attention equally in the last 15 minutes of the program to the all element of corruption, the 5% to whistleblowers, and whether this can give birth to the Kenyan versions of Julian Assange, who is a whistleblower, has been confined in the Ecuadorian embassy in the UK, in London. The hashtag is News Compass. I'll sample for some of your final feedback here on the program after this short commercial break here on the program. Stay tuned. All right, thank you so much. The discussion never ended. It went on off the mic. Honorable Nyokabi, if I may come to you, and we can get your sentiment on that before we went on break.
Yes,
go ahead, please.
I think there was the SGR and the economy, and also how to make sure that we are baking the cake. By the way, if you look at the report, it actually goes into those issues that we are all very interested in sharing the cake. Very few are interested in baking the cake. So now it is time to stop sharing. It is time to start baking the cake. And I see many, many opportunities there. There's a proposal there for Buy Kenya, Grow Kenya. Youth innovation, buy products that are made here so that our economy can grow, buy our coffee. And I come from a coffee and tea growing area. You know, the coffee that we produce in Nyeri and other counties, only 3% is consumed in the country. 97% is sold out of the country. In countries like Ethiopia, they are doing about 60% local consumption. And the good thing with local consumption is that it cushions you from the international market. If the international market has problems, you have sufficient domestic consumption, like what happened with our tourism. If you don't have international tourists coming, then you cushion yourself with domestic tourism. So what I'm liking is that we no longer need to point fingers. What we now need to do is find solutions. You look at the SGR in Suswa. The idea is not to keep saying it is going nowhere. The idea is to how do my goods get to Suswa so that they can then travel to the other parts of the country. And I'm worried about our own Central Kenya governors and our own bloc. Some of our counties are very close to Suswa. They're just about 10 kilometers. Kinangop, Nyandarua is not very far. Kiambu is not very far. Governor Lee in Nakuru not very far. And even others. You know, once there is a port, once there is a dry port in Naivasha, the question is how do my goods get to the dry port so that they can then move to other parts of the country or to even outside the country. So the conversations we should be having are not what the economy is not doing. In fact, it is time for the American president's...
make America great again.
Not make America great. Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask instead, what can you do for your own country? So this is the time for ask not what your country can do for you. What we are now asking is, what can you do for your country? And I'm hoping that we stop condemning, we start getting into more economic conversations. Even the debts, even the accountability. Corruption is a crime of many people refusing to see what is happening. I moved the access to information law in Parliament. If you just asked for the records, you can see that a photocopier of 10,000 has been bought at 4 million Kenya shillings. And you can question why a machine of 10,000 has cost 4 million in the public service. Another thing which we are not celebrating is that now public servants are also called upon to use the institutions that they supervise. If you're a lecturer in the university like Professor Kameri, who helped us to read the report, you are a professor in the University of Nairobi. Can we see your students in the University of Nairobi? But you can't be a professor in the University of Nairobi and your own children are in a well taken care of system in the private universities. The rest of our children are in very, very poor status here in the public university. I like the one for health. If you cost the public leaders to go to the national hospitals, the machines will work. The cancer machine will work. The dialysis will work. The X-ray will work. Otherwise, if you get into an accident, you will go into that same hospital which you refuse to buy the machine for. Then now you need the machine. Now somebody close to you needs the machine. And it shouldn't just be because of people close to us. The machine should work every day.
Okay.
But having, pushing public servants to use the institutions that they supervise is the best.
Okay.
If your children are school-going age, can they go to the public curriculum? You can't sell the CBC while your children are in GCE. Your children are enjoying a nice... you are doing CBC here for our poor children, while you are here doing graduate studies, but your children are abroad enjoying economies where their leaders invested in the systems. You are our leader here, you refuse to invest in our system, then you take children to enjoy systems that people have invested in. Let us invest in our country, and that is how we will grow our economy. Buy Kenya, grow Kenya.
What can
I know a friend who in some of the countries, what can I do for my country? When they go to their supermarket to buy rice, she's not Kenyan in their country, and it's an African country. You know, they actually choose the rice that comes from in their own country. But here, you go to a supermarket, you can cry. Some of our supermarkets have international products, from soap to sugar. I mean, it is time to also here have a buyers. Buy Kenya, buy Sunlight, buy products that are here so that the BIDCO can employ another 100 or 200 young Kenyans. Okay. And it's a conscious decision. Even us people with our weaves, and our wigs, you and your barber, your tie, you know, even when you wear your clothes, unajiuliza, what am I wearing that is Kenyan? Like the president said, Fridays, you wear something Kenyan. I know there was a joke in my class group that is this material Kenyan, even if it is stitched by a Kenyan tailor, at least umejaribu. Usinunue suti ambayo has been stitched abroad. Even if material is abroad, let the local tailor here do some stitching.
Asante sana. Let's now turn our attention to the matters of corruption, and as we finish up on the program, I'll give the final comments to Honorable Wavinya, Honorable Secretary Edwin Sifuna, and to you, Honorable Priscilla Nyokabi. There seems to be a semblance with regards to the environment now created for the fight against corruption to be scaled up by the government. And Honorable Wavinya and Ndeti, if I may come to you on that, do you think this will perhaps pave way for successful convictions of the big name, the big fish that so far are facing corruption charges in the courts of law? And is it one that will perhaps tighten the tap on the continuous siphoning of the public resources, both at the county and at the national level?
You know, if we talk about corruption, you're talking also about the big fish, yeah? But who aids these people get all these monies? You know, it's a chain of people. I think we need to use a bottoms-up approach and try to find out what happens for this money to be able to get out from where it's supposed to be getting, because some of these people don't have signatures or anything to get the money out of the government coffers. You know, let's use a bottoms-up approach and see if we can strengthen our systems from the ground, then I believe corruption will end. And empower our people, and especially the civil servants. We need to empower them. Yeah, because maybe you can just walk into an office and intimidate someone and they just do the things because maybe they think you're going to fire them, or, you know, we really need to strengthen our systems. And that is one of the things that was spoken to. In fact, I had the Deputy President talk about it, saying that we need to strengthen our institutions. Yeah. And I can tell you that is also part. We had a NEC meeting today.
Isn't it unfortunate at some point he made statements that also equally undermine the mandate of the institution, including DCI on Aurora and Kimbwari dams?
You see, let me tell you, for me he talked about...
that's double standard, isn't it?
Yeah, which we should not have double standards. We should not have double standards.
But if I can tell you of all of them, if there's any leader who spoke there, and I'm not being, my party leader spoke very well. And he put this country at heart and is there in the forefront of fighting corruption.
Yes.
So for me, I think seriously we should just use a bottoms-up approach. You know, let us empower our people from the ground, you know, coming to the top. And if the top bring issues, you know, the systems also deal with the people at the top there. But, you know, the bottom line is to strengthen our systems.
Okay.
Let us use a bottoms-up approach.
Okay.
Because tunatoa vitu juu.
Yes.
You understand? Tunatoa vitu juu, tunaletea watu, tunawapatia, tunawaambia zifanywe.
Okay.
And these people are not empowered.
Hopefully we'll have the tightening of the taps with regards to the pilferage of the resources. Edwin Sifuna, yes.
Yeah, on matters corruption, first of all, I want to say that the proposal, for instance, on
5%.
Is it 30% or 5%?
5% to whistleblowers.
Yeah, in my view, it's a bit simplistic, and it requires other support systems to be able to actually work. First of all, you need a judiciary that works. If you look at the rate of the convictions of people who are accused of corruption, the speed of completion of those cases, those whistleblowers are going to give up, because you will blow the whistle and then the case will take 20 years and you will be dead by the time. And even after the conviction, the process of recovery, if you look at the percentage of or amount of money that has been recovered vis-a-vis what people have been accused of stealing, it is peanuts. And for me, really, this issue of corruption has to be addressed from the point of the national ethos and what Mheshimiwa Nyokabi was referring to here. You have to have a conscience. For you, you should. How can you steal money that is for the construction of a hospital that works for everyone, so that you can afford to go to the UK for treatment? I come from a sugarcane growing area. And when sugarcane farming was working in this country, I'm contracted as a farmer to Nzoia Sugar. Nzoia Sugar was employing hundreds of young men, same to Mumias Sugar. When you go to Mumias right now, it is a ghost town. All those people have lost their employment. And it's very simple. There are few people discovered that instead of waiting for cane to grow for 12, 18 months, then you take it to the factory, wait another 18 months to be paid, I can simply call a trader who has a ship off the shores of Kenya, bring in 10,000 tons of sugar, I earn my money, I don't care about the people and the entire ecosystem that is supported by these sugar mills. It is selfishness, it is greed on a level that we need to actually have that conversation on our national ethos in this country, and to have some semblance of conscience and shame. You know, some people don't have capacity for shame. People will sit through meetings discussing corruption. They know they are talking about them. And they are seated there and they also come up and even contribute to the discussion. Yet it is them that the country is talking about.
Well, the people generally, a blanket sort of statement, to be specific, who?
No, I don't want to get into that. You know, now we are in another mood as a country. We want to have I don't want to chase them from the table.
Okay.
I want them to come and we tell them that really you have done us wrong as a country. Please stop. Let us start a new chapter in the country.
Yes, Honorable Nyokabi, final comments.
I think the report says, tries to address corruption issues. One, it identifies the problem correctly. We glorify corruption.
Yeah.
Completely. If a corrupt person comes, even to the church, instead of the church saying you should sit at the back, we pray for you. Even the bishop can stand up and allow the person to sit on their chair. That is how much we glorify corruption. We have made the normal, the abnormal, and the abnormal the normal. If you come to public office and you don't steal, you are, I mean, people even laugh at you. Angalia umjinga. Ametoka kwa ofisi with nothing. Instead of being happy that you have served the public so well and left with honor, you are ridiculed. So the report resets us. We are back to factory. I think we went so far from our factory settings. We need to go back to those settings, and we need to know that corruption is wrong and punish corruption. My own frustration with the report is that it doesn't go far enough. I expected it to provide the 6 months rule for ending of corruption cases, and we expected it to say categorically that those who are convicted will no longer be available for public office, and to also say that if you are charged, you step aside, and that there is no bail. Again, if you make it painful for people to be corrupt, there will be less corruption. We call them deterrence measures. Because now when you are corrupt, you just are enjoying life with your lawyers, you know, there is no pain at all. You are getting the best seats in the church. You are in the first class in the plane. You leave the country at will with our proceeds. In the meantime, the hospitals are closed. the schools are closed. So I'm hoping that in the second phase,
yes,
that corruption receives a lot more attention. The funding to the DPP, I think that is appreciated, but also the strengthening of the institutions that fight corruption, the separation of ethics and anti-corruption. Again, EACC is doing too much. I think EACC should concentrate on fighting corruption.
Yes.
It should not do these promotional and education things. We all know what corruption is. There is no need of educating us on that.
Okay.
But just lastly is that if we implement this report, Kenya will be a much better country. And I'm hoping we implement it before 2022. We should let 2022 be 2022. We have just said here on this table, there are countries going into election in December.
In about 1 week's
we don't
time.
even know. The US will go into an election next year for the president.
November,
President Trump, we don't even, we know he's not as active as we have an election in 2022. So can we do this? Because the implementation period is 18 months in the report. Fast track the processes so that in 18 months, this is implemented. A lot of the chunk, what needs to go to administrative, what needs to go to behavior, what needs to go to the constitutional amendment is done. And in 18 months, this is done, and then now we can focus on the election. And hoping for more inclusion. With women, we are still a bit worried because sometimes we get gender gains in reports like this. But when they go to parliament, you find a bit of massacring has happened. So we are hoping that there's a lot of protection mechanism around the content of this report, that nobody has opportunity to mutilate what we have in this report, and that it is implemented faithfully. Because had we implemented 2010 faithfully, we wouldn't be in some of the problems we are in now.
Okay, Asante, yes. Final word to you. 30 seconds.
I'm the chairperson of Kenya Water Institute, and I'm welcoming all the parents to bring their children there for training. We are a water training institution, Kenya Water Institute. We're working towards making it a center of excellence in water engineering. So all parents are welcome to bring their children there. And we are also working with HELP to ensure that they get loans for training.
You are in government.
Asante.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I didn't know.
Wonderful, Priscilla Nyokabi, former Nyeri Women Rep. I do thank you, Commissioner. Thank you so much for coming. Edwin Sifuna, Secretary and ODM Party. I appreciate your time. And former Kadhiani Member of Parliament, Honorable Wavinya Ndeti. Thank you so much for making time on the program. And thank you to you too for your texts, comments on Twitter, Facebook, and one final one here on the text message. Kevin says, the fight on corruption should always be, as Mheshimiwa Ndeti has said, a bottom-up approach, the institutions be strengthened, and zero interference from the political establishment. So many feedback coming up on the SMS line and equally on Twitter, and we do thank you for keeping us company here on News Compass on day 28 of November 2019. I am Ayub Abdi from the team here in Lavington. We'll see you in under 7 hours time for the morning show here, and where we'll have a discussion that pertains the young people in the country, and the university leaders will be here tomorrow morning at 7 with me as we discuss their input into the BBI report and how that is likely going to be affecting them going forward into the future, since they form a large bulk or alliance share of the Kenyan population. Thank you. We'll see you next week at the same time here on News Compass. Bye-bye.